folks. Today's human-centered design method is going to be buy a feature. I'm Altemus, Program Director with the Consortium for Public Education. What is buy a feature? Buy a feature is a method for prioritizing product, service, or experience features when working with a limited budget. In this method, design decisions are determined by input from potential users based on how those users would prefer to spend their money on specific features. And when we are talking about where this method fits into the design cycle, typically, buy a feature is used as part of the empathize phase of design. So when designing a new product or service, your budget may be the key deciding factor for which features you include in that design. While it would be awesome to include every feature, that's rarely ever possible. So you might want this, but your budget may only allow for this, or maybe only this. So how can this method help? Buy a feature asks users to prioritize components that they would prefer in a product. It gives users a voice in how their money will be spent, and reveals patterns of demand, as in which components users choose most often. So let's talk process. Step 1. Create a list of features or items that might be a part of your design. But remember, these are features, not essentials. If you're building a car, it'll need an engine. The difference might lie in how nice or expensive that engine is. Step 2. Determine the approximate cost of each feature or item. Step 3. Convert each actual feature cost to a simplified price. In our scenario, we're going to simplify prices. So we are going to round each price and divide each price in half. And we're going to do this because rounding eliminates the need for more specific dollar bills when we use this method, and dividing the price in half reduces the number of bills needed for the activity. Keep in mind, the most important thing is for features to retain their relative cost. So what does this mean? If a feature was originally 2 times as costly as its cheaper option, for example, feature number 1 is $10,000 and feature number 2 is $5,000, it should still be 2 times as costly when the prices are simplified. So if we reduce those costs down to feature number 1 being $100 and feature number 2 being $50, the difference in cost between each feature is still the same. So let's explore a variety of features for a car. For example, we have GPS, heated seats, tinted windows at their actual cost. Then we simplify those costs, rounding those numbers and dividing them in half. We'll do the same thing for our rims and tires. Again, the same thing for car interior. And one more time for our sound systems, dividing in half and rounding those numbers to make it easier when we actually do the buy a feature activity. So back to process. We're at step 4. Determine each participant's budget. At the very least, the budget should be less than the sum of the most expensive features. This means participants don't have the option to just choose all of the nicest, most expensive features. And as you're creating your budget, it could represent the actual limited budget that you will be using in reality. However, finding the right budget for this method can be tricky. Consider testing this method and budget with your team before taking it to a larger audience to make sure that it works well. Also, this method works best when using fake money that participants can spend. Consider using Monopoly money or Play money, or even printing your own if you can. So step 5, provide each participant with the set of potential features and a budget of fake money to spend. Keep in mind that overspending can hurt your results. If you give participants too much money, or make each feature too cheap, your user results won't be very useful to your final design. It's essential that participants must make choices with their money. For each feature, make sure to include a picture to represent that feature, a brief description so that participants understand the context of each feature, and the cost associated with each feature. It's important that all participants clearly understand how they would be spending their money and what each feature represents. Features could be shared on individual cards or printed together on sheets of paper. So let's revisit our car example. So here is an example of all of our car features presented in one place. As you can see, participants can view each of these features specifically. There's a picture, a very brief description, and a cost. Now, step 6, ask your participants to spend their money by buying the features that are most important to them. So for our hypothetical participant, they begin to spend their money, first spending $200 on heated seats, and then $300 on a high-end sound system, $600 on that high-end interior, and then finally, with their last $100, spending that on the basic rims and tires. As you can see, our participant cannot spend their budget on all of the high-end features. They simply do not have a budget large enough to do that. So they had to make choices for each of these categories. And that brings us to step 7. Repeat this process with a representative number of customers or stakeholders. Eventually, you will have enough input to determine clear patterns of interest and make informed decisions about your design. Now, in terms of buy a feature in person versus virtual, for in-person, create individual cards or a sheet listing all of the features, including descriptions and price. Pictures are often helpful as well. Provide each participant with either board game money or fake bills from an online template. Buy a feature is best done in person, but you could still conduct this activity online using a spreadsheet created in Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. Here in this example, create a table in Sheets, adding the description, picture, and cost for each. And then adding in a formula that subtracts money from the participant's budget as they choose items in the table. In an administrator setting, consider using this method when designing new learning spaces, such as a STEAM makerspace. Staff and students might help prioritize which equipment and materials to purchase. Or it might also be helpful in gathering feedback from community members on potential new district purchases or developments. To review, remember, this method is intended to identify priority features for a product, service, or experience. And make sure that your budget is limited. The goal is to make participants choose between features to reveal their preferences. As always, if you found this explainer video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.